Welcome back to Drafting with Mark, and in this video I decided to create a three-dimensional part using AutoCAD. Now I'm going to take you through the whole entire steps and process of creating this three-dimensional part, as well as putting it on a title block and dimensioning it. So this video is going to be quite long, so go ahead and get your popcorn ready, sit back, and let's go ahead and get started and enjoy. Alright, let's go ahead and do our normal housekeeping that we normally do. Let's go ahead and turn the grid off. And we're going to go ahead and put the ortho on. We're going to make sure that we have our running OSNAP set. And we have all of those set. Alright, so now we're going to begin by kind of creating this. And when you're dealing with three-dimensional parts, remember that everything has to be its own closed polygon, right? That's going to be the key to making these. It's got to be a closed polygon. And I'll kind of demonstrate that as we keep going through this process. So I'm going to start off by creating a line. And I'm going to click here. And I'm just going to draw a straight line going this direction, a distance of 70. Alright, so that's kind of the first part of my object that I'm going to create, right? So I'm going to kind of build off of this. The diameter here at this end happens to be 28. So I'll go ahead and use the offset command. Type in the distance of 14, and I'm just going to offset this line going one time to the top and one time to the bottom. Alright, so the next step I have here is that I do have something that's happening here. I have this kind of moon or kind of C-shaped that's going on here. And it gives me the dimension of that from this point to the center of that is going to be 80 away. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply select this line. I'm going to select this grip, and I'm going to drag it this direction, and I'll type in 80. Alright, so from here I'm going to create two circles. So I'm going to use a circle center radius. I'll click here, and that circle here is going to be 60. I'll go ahead and create another circle center radius from this end point here, and I'll go ahead and make this 40. Alright, so now I kind of got my C-shaped here created. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make this kind of piece that is located here. And this one has a diameter of 40. So what I'm going to do is go back to the offset command. I'm going to type in a distance of 40. No, sorry, half of that. So I'm going to type in a distance of 20. And then I'm going to offset this center line, one time going that way and one time coming down. Alright, now let's go ahead and clean up a little bit of this just so I have everything kind of the way I like it. Let's go ahead and draw a line going straight across here. Alright, and then we're going to use the fillet command to kind of clean up some of this. So let's go to fillet. I'm not using a radius right now, so my radius is set to 0. And what I'm doing here is just simply filleting with a radius of 0 to make a corner, right? So I'll go back to the fillet command and I'll do the same up here at the top. Alright, I need to trim in between these two lines, or I need to split it or something of that nature. So there's a few different commands that we can use to do that. Here's a command we haven't used in a while. I'm just going to use a break, which is located here. And the way break works is that I'm going to select here, and that's going to be the start of my break, and then I'll click here. And that'll be the end of my break. Now I'm going to go ahead and put a fillet with a radius of 5 here. So let's go back to the fillet command, choose radius. I'm going to type in 5 as my distance, or my radius in this case. So 5, enter. Oh, and it looks like I typed in 55. Let me go back to the radius. Then I'll type in 5, enter. And now I do have more than one, so I'm going to select the multiple option here. And then I'm going to go ahead and place those fillets located here. Okay. So now for this shape, it actually goes into my C shape here, right? So the way that I'm going to create that is I'm just going to draw a line from this intersection going right to this intersection, right? Those are going to be the low points of whenever this thing revolves around. And I'm kind of speaking in terms right now of what I plan on doing. So I'm going to make a revolve that goes around that way, and it's going to capture that. Let's go ahead and trim this. And let's go ahead and use the trim command here. I'm just going to trim off these lines. Locate it like such, right? Let's go ahead and finish off some of this stuff. I'm going to draw a line here at the top going right across. And I'll go ahead and draw one more line that goes across here. Now, I will go ahead and make these into polylines, but I'm going to save that step for a little bit later. I'm going to go ahead and kind of finish out working all of the stuff here at the bottom. So for the next part here at the bottom, I have this long kind of line here that's going 140, and that's going to define these two little round circles that are in the back here. So I'm just going to draw a line that's vertical, and the distance will be 140. I'm going to move this line to that endpoint. And here's another one of those shortcuts if you're used to using grips, is that if you select the line and then you click on this middle grip and then just click on this endpoint, you will see that you can move your line rather quickly. Now this circle has a diameter of 70, right? I'm not going to worry about the inside circle of that yet. So I'm just going to go back to the offset command, and then I'm going to offset half of 70, which in this case should be 35. And then I'm going to offset this kind of going this direction and one going this direction, right? Now you'll notice that I need to move this down another 50, right? So we have the centers that are located here. So I'm just going to move all three of these lines, and once again I'm going to use grips. So I'm trying to give you some more quicker and advanced options here of using some of your AutoCAD commands. So I'm going to select these three lines. I'll select this midpoint, and I'm just going to hit the space bar one time. I'm going to drag this direction, and I'm just going to type in 50. Alright, so now I have those located where I need them. The next thing I need to do is go ahead and draw a line going down from this quadrant, and let's go right to this midpoint here, or where it perpendiculars, I'm sorry. Let's do the exact same thing on this inside line, so I'm just going back to the line command. I'm going to select this quadrant, and I'm going to bring it down to that perpendicular. We can mirror that, or we can do the exact same thing on the other side. So I'm just going to go to mirror. I'm going to select both of these lines. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'm just going to take this line and drag it across to that one. Go ahead and answer no to that question by hitting enter. Okay. And then let's go ahead and draw a few more things here. So I need to draw a line now from this outside going to here, and a line going from this outside to here. Alright, so a few things that we need to create, right? This is all of the shapes that I almost need, right? I got one of them that I have to clean up just a little bit, but for the most part, this is everything that I need to create my shapes. Alright, so I'm going to start making these into closed polylines, and I'm going to do that by using some rectangles and some joins and things of that nature. So starting here at the bottom, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the rectangle command. I'm just going to select this endpoint, and I'm going to go over to this endpoint. Likewise here at the top, I'm just going to go back to the rectangle command. I'll go ahead and select this endpoint to that endpoint, right? So now I have my two lines that I want to spin around there. So those are going to eventually become cylinders. I'm just going to select and delete these three vertical lines here. So those are gone. Alright, so the next shape that I need to create, and I should have actually kept one of those vertical lines, but that's going to be okay. Let's go ahead and use the trim command. And then we're going to trim off the portions of this C section here, right? So I'm going to trim here. I'm going to do this one, and then this one, right? Let's go ahead and delete these two lines as well. We don't need those anymore. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to simply draw a line going from this endpoint to this endpoint. So line from endpoint to endpoint. Then I'm going to draw another line from endpoint to endpoint at the top. So I'm going to draw a line from that endpoint to this one. Alright, so what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to put a window around these components. I'm going to hold down the, the shift button. Or actually, no. Go ahead and hit escape. Go ahead and use the join command first. So I'm going to go to join. And then we'll go ahead and put a window around these objects. And from here, I should be able to hold down the shift button and then deselect that line there. So I have all of these selected. Once I hit enter, I'm looking for it to say that I have 8 objects converted into one polyline. So that's what I want to see. So this now is one polyline. All right, now I'm going to work here along the top, right? And the way I like to do these is that one at the top is going to be super easy, no problems to do. All I'm going to do is go ahead and delete this line first. So I'm just going to go ahead and erase that. And I'm going to go ahead and erase this line here as well. From here, I should be able to create a 2-point rectangle, right? So I'm just going to use a rectangle, and I'm going to go from this endpoint to that endpoint, right? Let's go ahead and delete that line there. And what I'm going to do is I'm only going to work on this top half, right? So we can use the trim command. Let's go ahead and trim off this bottom line here. And then I'm going to escape out of that. I'm going to select this line here. I'm going to grab this endpoint, and then I'm going to place it right at that endpoint. One more thing I need to do is I'm going to select this line here. I'm going to grab this endpoint, and I'm going to place it at this endpoint. Select this line again, and likewise by putting that endpoint here at this endpoint. Let's go ahead and get rid of some of our leftover stuff here. So I'm just going to delete these 2 objects here. And then now I have the shape that I want here, so I'm going to select it. And then I'm going to go to the join command. Once again, I'm looking down here at the bottom. It says 6 objects was converted into a polyline. All right, one of the neat things I want to do is make sure I don't have any straggling lines here. And I'm just going to highlight all of this. I'm going to right click and I'm going to go to properties. And what I should see there is that I only have polylines here. So that's exactly what I like to see. I only have all polylines. That means that when I go to the next step here, everything is going to be perfect. Let's go ahead and close this. And I do have mine kind of hidden in black here, but I'm going to change these here in a second, right? In yours, you will be able to see them. They should be some white words up here, but I'll show you what they mean here in a second. Let's go ahead and switch over to 3D and tell AutoCAD now that we're ready to use 3D. The way we do that is that we select this sprocket and select the fly up, and then go to 3D modeling. Give it a little bit, and now this is one of the things that you may annoy you or not, but the next time you open up AutoCAD, it's going to be set to these settings for you. So you're just going to have to go back and change it back to drafting and annotation if you want to go ahead and use it for 2D drafting again. All right, let's go ahead and close this. I'm going to go ahead and put this in an isometric stance. And let's go ahead and put it in isometric. By selecting the corner, and I actually meant to select that corner of my view cube, I have everything that I need to create this, right? I'm going to change this. So yours should say 2D wireframe. I'm going to select that drop down, and I'll go to the word wireframe. Once I do that, your screen may change depending on how your colors are set, but you can see mine changed here. My UCS should look different. So it's telling me now it's in 3D, which means that I can use my gizmos and things of that nature. All right, let's first go ahead and knock out our revolves first. So I'm going to go to revolve. I'm going to select these 2 rectangles. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'm going to select this endpoint here, going across to this endpoint. All right. Now, by default, it's going to be 360 degrees. So just hit enter, and it should create those circles. Let's go ahead and do another revolve here. So I'm going to go back to revolve. I'm going to select this shape and then this shape. Go ahead and hit enter. And we're going to select this endpoint to that endpoint, right? Once again, the same principle applies, that this is going to go 360 degrees. So just go ahead and hit enter. All right, one last thing I need to do is I need to extrude this, and it has a distance of 40. So instead of revolve, go to the drop down, select extrude. Go ahead and select this shape here, this C shape. Hit enter. And I'm going to send it going up a distance of 40. Now I'm going to select that shape that I just created, which is this one. I'm going to go and select in my rotate gizmo and change it to move gizmo. I'll select this blue or purple arrow depending on kind of the way you see it. So select that. I'm going to pull it down going this direction, and I'm going to type in 20. All right, now I'm going to join all of this together, right? The way we do that is that we're going to use the union command. So go to union, and then start selecting all of these objects. It does not matter which order you select them in or how you select them, as long as you select them all. Once that is done, go ahead and hit enter. And now you see that that shape should be created. If I change this to something else, which I'm going to save that for here in a second, you will actually see that this is created the way we want it. The last thing I need to do is go ahead and put a hole going through here and here. The way that I'm going to do that is using the cylinder command. So I'll go to cylinder, and then this face should highlight. Now, if your face is not highlighting like this one, go ahead and hit F6 on your command line, on your keyboard, and you're going to get it to appear like this. So once this blue face appears, slowly creep till you get to the edge of that, right? Try not to click on the edge, but you can see that there's a green circle around the center of this, and it's saying center. Once you get that, do a left click, and now your circle is going to start appearing from that angle, right? So it's automatically going to rotate and shift around to that. We do have the diameter of that, so I'm going to select the word diameter on my command line, and then I'm going to type in 40 for my diameter, and then I'm going to send it this way. Now the distance doesn't matter as long as it goes through both of these cylinders. So I'm going to go across here, do a left click there, then we're going to use the subtract command. So go to subtract. First thing I'm going to do is select the object I want to keep first, which is going to be this one. Go ahead and hit enter, and then I'm going to select the object I want to subtract from it, which is going to be this cylinder, and hit enter. All right, so now we have actually completed drawing this three-dimensional shape. I'm going to go ahead and change this to shades of gray, and now you do see that this is going to change here in a second, and you're going to see that it does look like the shape that we're trying to create. All right, next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click on here and go to front. This is not the front view that's going to be in my drawing. If you remember back, and we're going to see the drawing here in a second, that this thing was actually the top view. So I need to work on this being the front view, right? And I want you to see that this is the front view. So I'm going to rotate that with my view cube on front to get this to look just like this shape. So the way we're going to do this is first, go ahead and select your object here. Go ahead and change your gizmo to a rotate gizmo. I'm going to select the red axis, and I'm just going to type in 90. Once you hit enter, it should rotate. And if I look at this thing isometrically by selecting this little small rectangle or square on my view cube, you should see that it is rotated in the right orientation now. All right, now we're ready to do the drafting. So this part was all that we needed to do to create this three-dimensional shape. Now, before I do that, I forgot there is one more radius on this object here, and I almost forgot about it. So I'm going to switch over here to solid. Then I'm going to go to fillet edge. I'm going to go down to radius, and when I go to radius, I'm going to type in 2, enter. Now it's going to ask me to select the edges. The first edge that I'm going to select is going to be here, and I'll zoom in to get a little closer. It's going to be this edge. Let's zoom back out. Then I'm going to select this lower part of my view cube here. That'll rotate it up. And then I'm going to select that edge. Once I have both of those selected, go ahead and hit enter. It's going to ask you, is you sure that's what you want to do? I'll hit enter one more time to confirm it. Then I'll come back to my isometric view. So now that we have all of our fillets on here, our shape is completed. Now we're ready to do the 2D portion. And the way we're going to do that is we're just going to switch to the layout tab. We're going to go ahead and delete this shape here. So I'm going to delete that viewport. I'm going to go ahead and create a rectangle. Now, if you're used to doing a lot of the drafting stuff and you don't quite know where a lot of those icons and things of that nature of it is, remember that it's always easier to go ahead and type in the first 3 letters of the command that you want to do. But if you are looking for those icons, I'll show you where they are right now, which they're all located underneath the Home tab. And under here, you can see that some of those commands are highlighted, and then for the other ones, you can select the drop down and you can get to them. But we're going to go to the rectangle command. I'm going to type in 0, 0 as my lower left corner. Go ahead and hit enter. And then I'm going to type in 17, 11. Go ahead and hit enter. I'm going to zoom the extents here by selecting this icon. Zoom out just a hair more. I'm going to use the offset command, which is located here. Type in a distance of 0.25. I'm going to select here and then click on the inside. Alright, let's jump over to the Page Setup Manager in order to get this white paper to match my paper here. The way we do that is I'm just going to do a right click on Layout 1. I'll go to Page Setup Manager. When the dialog box appears, I'm going to click on Modify. I'm going to go to where it says DWG to PDF. I'm going to tell it here, ANSI Full Bleed, B size 17 by 11. I'm going to switch this to Extents. I'm going to tell it that I want it centered. And then I'm just going to hit OK. Once you do that, the white paper should match now what your title block is. Go ahead and close this. And now we're ready to bring in our views and things of that nature. So I'm going to go to the layout. And then I'm going to go to Base. So I'm going to select the drop down under Base, and I'm going to tell it that I created this from model space. Once you do that, you should have your icon or your shape should appear and it follows you, right? So if that's not the correct scale that you wanted at, you can always change the scale by selecting here, or you can come up here and select in the drop down here and you can choose a different scale, right? So if I wanted this to be a little bit bigger, I can select the 1 to 40. Or I can even go up a little higher, maybe 1 to 30 if I really wanted it big enough. But I think 1 to 40 is what we're going to use. So go ahead and select 1 to 40. I'm going to left click here and place my first shape. Go ahead and hit enter after you've selected it. I'm going to left click above it. I'm going to bring this over, do a left click. And then I'm going to move this up here and do another left click. And now so I'm done with all that, go ahead and hit enter on your keyboard. And it should draft all of those shapes for you. Alright, so with this view, I'm just going to double click it. Once I double click it, it should change the icon here. I'm going to select here in the drop down and tell it shade it with visible edges. And then I'm going to change the scale of this one. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. So instead of being 1 to 40, let's go ahead and make it 1 to 50. Go ahead and hit OK. Alright, the rest of this stuff is going to be kind of fairly easy for us to do if you followed any of my videos on 2D drafting. So I'm going to click on the annotation. I'm going to go to center marks. And then I'm just going to start placing my center mark. So I have a center mark here. And I do have a center mark going here, right? I have a couple of them going here. So I'm going to select here. And then going through here, it's going to be a center line. So I'm going to go to select center line. And with the center line, you have to select opposite parts of where you want that center line to go through. I can also select these hidden lines if I want to. So I can select that hidden line and then that hidden line. Alright, go ahead and hit the escape button and then select that. And then I want you to grab that square and place it on that midpoint. Go ahead and hit escape. I'm going to select this center mark here. I'm going to click this square and I'll place it at that midpoint. Alright, let's go up here to the top. I'm just going to do a center line on that one. I'm going to click here and here. Alright, and then over here we have this center mark. So I'm just going to select this center mark. I'm going to grab that square and place it here. And I'm going to grab this square and place it here at the bottom on that midpoint. Alright. So now we're ready to start doing some dimensioning. So the easiest way to get to our dimensioning style is selecting this little down arrow here. Once the dialog box appears, we're going to be using the standard. So let's go to Modify. Once we're in Modify, go to Primary Units. I'm just going to tell it that to suppress the trailing 0. Next, we're going to go to Fit. I'm going to leave the overall scale set to 1. Remember that we're using kind of paper space, so we don't have to worry about that. In the text, I will adjust this text. So I'm going to make it a height of 0.125. We're going to go to symbols and arrows, and we're going to set this to none since we did all of our center marks and things of that nature. Go ahead and hit OK. Go ahead and hit close. All right, now we're ready to start doing some dimensioning, right? So I'm going to start on this view first. I'm just going to add a linear dimension from this endpoint to that endpoint. And I'll place that dimension. Go back to linear. I'm going to go from this endpoint to the very top. Go ahead and place that dimension. Likewise here at the bottom, I'm going to do a couple of more of those. So I'm going to go from that endpoint to this center line here. Now I'll go back to linear. I'm going to go from that endpoint there to there. Now sometimes you will see that these arrows will appear, and that usually means that you didn't select something right. So if you select on the arrow there and hit reassociate, it's going to give you an option to go ahead and select them again. So I'm going to select that endpoint, and on this side I'm going to select that endpoint. So now once I've selected it right and cleared it up, you see that it does take away that little arrow there, or that little warning sign. Let's go back to linear. I'm going to select that endpoint and go to that endpoint. Start working on this view now. So I'm going to go ahead and put a linear dimension from this center mark here to that center mark. I'll use the continue option, and then I'll click right on that endpoint. Go ahead and hit escape after that. Let's go ahead and put a couple of more linear dimensions on this one. So linear, go from here to here, place that dimension. Add another linear dimension from that endpoint going to that endpoint. And you can see that I did miss going on this one, right? So I'm just going to go ahead and delete this dimension. Then I'm going to go back to linear, and I'll make sure I get those endpoints, right? So I'm going to go to that endpoint to that endpoint. Now it gives me the right distance. And a lot of times I don't worry about this stuff here in the beginning. I'll clean that up, but I just try to get all of my dimensions on. So I'm going to add my radial dimensions next. So I'm going to go to radius. I'm going to select this radius. You can hit the enter button if you don't feel like going back up to this icon and keep hitting it every time. So that's kind of another one of those things that you can do. But all I'm doing is just going to keep adding these radial dimensions that are located here. Then I have one more that's located here at the top. All right. So while I'm working on this view here, I'm going to go ahead and kind of get everything set up here. Let me move this up. With these two dimensions, I'm going to select them, do a right click, go to properties, and I like having my properties windows open when I'm doing my dimensioning. So I'm going to go down to where it says text override. I will type in the %% less than greater than. Go ahead and hit enter. And that should put the diameter symbol in front of both of those. Go ahead and hit escape, and then I'm going to select this dimension here and this one. I'm going to go to properties, then I'm going to find the extension line, and I'm going to go ahead and turn that off. Alright, and in front of this one I need the word 2x, so I'm just going to escape first. I'm going to double click on this dimension and give it a second. It should go into the edit. I'm going to hit the home button on my keyboard, and then I'll type in 2x, right? I'm just going to left click somewhere off of the screen and then hit escape. All right, and then finally I'm ready to finish out and put my dimensions on this one. So I'm going to go back to the linear dimension. I'm going to go from this center, so that endpoint there, to this endpoint here. Next, I'll go back to the linear dimension. I'm going to go from this endpoint to that endpoint. And then lastly, I have to just put a couple of diameter dimensions on. So I'm going to go a diameter dimension from here, and then one more diameter dimension here. Okay, let's take a look and zoom the extents. And it looks like I'm actually done with this one and got all the dimensions on and things of that nature. So I want you to let me know in the comment section if these long videos are something that you like to see instead of me breaking them up. It's totally up to you. I don't mind doing them either way, but I find sometimes some people might look at the first video and not the second one as opposed to the other one. So please let me know, or even if you like seeing these three-dimensional videos here in AutoCAD. I will start doing some more Inventor videos as well, so if that's a program that you're interested in, stay tuned as I'm going to start doing a little bit more of those videos, and you can also find that kind of stuff in my playlist, and I guess I can start making a three-dimensional playlist. So thank you for watching this one, and once again, thank you to all the subscribers and people that comment and share on my videos. I truly do appreciate it, and I really do appreciate doing this kind of stuff for you. And if there's something that you want me to do, or if I made a mistake in this, also leave that in the comment. It'll only help me do better for you guys. All right, so thank you.